Welcome to our U.S. briefing show. Today, we're diving into some hot topics. First up, a U.S. federal appeals court has temporarily upheld President Trump's tariffs on imports, but the legal battle continues. These tariffs, which have sparked controversy over their constitutionality, are still in effect while the courts decide if they exceed presidential authority. Talk about a trade policy showdown. Next, across the U.S., protests are booming. Thousands are rallying in cities like New York, Chicago, and Seattle to oppose the crackdown on immigrants by ICE. The demonstrations are fierce, with some protesters even blocking government vehicles and demanding sanctuary status for cities like New York. The nation's streets are alive with voices calling for compassion and change. And finally, big news from Tesla. Elon Musk announced that their robotaxi service might launch in Austin as early as June 22. Imagine hopping into an autonomous vehicle for your city commute. This could revolutionize urban transportation, but safety concerns mean the rollout might be a bit tentative. Exciting times ahead for tech and travel. Please continue to stay tuned for more details. The New York Times reports that President Donald Trump's tariffs, which he used as leverage in trade negotiations, are currently upheld by a federal appeals court while legal challenges continue. The court's decision allows these tariffs to stay in effect temporarily, despite lower courts ruling that Trump exceeded his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA. The tariffs, which target imports from China, Canada, and Mexico, have stirred market volatility and disrupted supply chains, with critics arguing that they are not legally justified under the law Trump claims to rely on. The ongoing legal battles highlight the constitutional debate over whether the president or Congress holds the power to impose tariffs, with courts consistently questioning Trump's broad use of emergency powers to justify his trade policies. Yahoo US details the widespread protests across the United States against the Trump administration's intensified immigration enforcement, particularly focusing on Los Angeles. Demonstrators, many holding signs like "ICE out of New York" and chanting "No more deportations," rallied in major cities including New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Omaha, and Seattle. These protests reflect deep frustration among immigrant communities and allies who see the crackdown as unjust and harmful to the country's immigrant roots. In Los Angeles, thousands gathered despite the deployment of thousands of National Guard troops and Marines, with the city declaring a curfew after days of unrest. Protesters voiced their outrage at what they perceive as the targeting of workers and families, emphasizing that America was founded as a nation of immigrants, and condemning the aggressive tactics used by authorities. The Los Angeles Times reports that the protests turned violent, with over 100 arrests and property damage, prompting Mayor Karen Bass to impose a curfew and declare a local emergency. President Trump responded by describing the unrest as an invasion by foreign enemies, accusing protesters of carrying foreign flags and calling them animals. He threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy military forces if necessary, framing the protests as a threat to national sovereignty. Critics, including California Governor Gavin Newsom, accused Trump of inflaming tensions by sending troops and making inflammatory statements. The situation remains tense, with the costs of military deployment estimated at over $134 million, and ongoing debates about the appropriateness and legality of using military force to quell civil unrest. The Associated Press reports that numerous global brands, including Walmart, Coca-Cola, and Sherwin-Williams, face potential links to forced labor within their supply chains due to sourcing critical minerals from China's Xinjiang region. This area, under heavy scrutiny for alleged human rights abuses against Uyghurs and Turkic minorities, supplies titanium, lithium, beryllium, and magnesium, materials integral to industries such as aerospace, automotive, and defense. The report highlights 77 Chinese suppliers operating in Xinjiang, suspected of participating in China's coercive labor transfer programs that forcibly integrate Uyghurs into factory work as part of a broader campaign of repression and assimilation. Despite the lack of immediate comment from the companies involved, the findings underscore the urgent need for corporations worldwide to scrutinize their supply chains to prevent complicity in human rights violations, as the international community continues to grapple with the ramifications of China's policies in Xinjiang amid ongoing trade negotiations with the U.S. Australian Broadcasting Corporation details the recent breakthrough in U.S.-China trade negotiations, where representatives from both nations have agreed in principle on a framework to implement the consensus reached during last month's Geneva talks. The agreement aims to solidify a 90-day suspension of retaliatory tariffs that had escalated into a trade war threatening global economic stability. As U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and China's Vice Minister Li Chenggang reported, the deal will be taken back to their respective leaders for approval, with further negotiations on the horizon. President Trump expressed cautious optimism, acknowledging the complexities of dealing with China but emphasizing the importance of opening up the Chinese market to U.S. products. Meanwhile, tensions persist over issues like advanced semiconductors, rare earth minerals, and visa policies, with China hinting at easing export restrictions on rare earths, vital to many industries. The negotiations symbolize a delicate balancing act, striving to de-escalate economic hostilities while addressing long-standing disagreements over technology, trade practices, and strategic resources amid a tense geopolitical climate. According to South China Morning Post, a potential breakthrough in inter-Korean relations is unfolding as South Korea's newly elected President Lee Jae-myung advocates for a de-escalation of tensions with North Korea. His administration has taken the first step by urging civic groups to cease the launch of anti-Pyongyang propaganda leaflets, a move that marks a stark departure from the previous conservative stance that defended such acts as free speech. Experts like Ko Yu-hwan and Chang Yong-suk interpret this gesture as an earnest attempt to rebuild trust and restore communication channels that have been severed since 2023, including military and diplomatic links. The South hopes that North Korea will reciprocate by halting propaganda efforts and resuming dialogue, which could eventually lead to the reinstatement of military communications and a reduction in hostile actions. However, North Korea's recent actions, such as severing ties and redefining South Korea as its primary enemy, complicate the prospects of rapprochement, especially amid the broader geopolitical context involving the United States and other regional tensions. Meanwhile, the Associated Press reports that Elon Musk is tentatively preparing to launch Tesla's robotaxi service in Austin, Texas, on June 22, with a cautious approach emphasizing safety. Musk's announcement follows months of anticipation from investors and enthusiasts eager to see fully autonomous vehicles operational in major cities like Austin, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Initially, the service will feature a small fleet of around 10 taxis, monitored remotely and confined to geo-fenced areas to ensure safety. Musk's decade-long promise of fully autonomous cars has faced delays and increased scrutiny, especially amid Tesla's recent struggles with declining vehicle sales, fierce competition, and Musk's political entanglements. The rollout represents a pivotal moment for Tesla, as it transitions from a manufacturer of electric vehicles to a pioneer in driverless ride-hailing services, though concerns about regulatory oversight and safety remain high as the company ventures into this uncharted territory. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
News breaks, buzz the ground, stories spit, walls come down. Voices merge in the sound, faces mix in the crowd. Broadcasters paint the scene, world events on our screen. Every link a different theme, words collide in the stream. 6 degrees connect the dots, background stories more than nuts. Hear the voices rise a lot, truth unveils in every spot. Cultures clash across the globe, spin the threads in a stroke. Every story wears a robe, truth and lies in their code. Journalistic real deep, secrets out they don't see. Every angle they repeat, in the news we take a lead. New perspectives day by day, hidden truths come to play. In the background shades of gray, every story finds its way. Just
cultures. I go. What really or do not. What enough to be you. Everything and ever. What enough enough to what enough enough to what enough 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 enough